Now, I know we're talking about Marvel Comics, but I think we're living in bizarro world here. This is weird. The comic book industry is complaining about censorship. That their opinions, that their political beliefs are being silenced by Marvel, by Disney, when these are the same complaints that a lot of comic book readers and some creators have had over the last couple of years, and they were told to STFU. That they were imagining things, that it simply was not true. There was no political agenda. There was no bias. There was no censorship. It was all in their heads, that they're creating problems on YouTube and other places where those problems did not exist. We had the comic book industry seemingly as a collective trying to squash dissenting voices, trying to drive certain individuals out of the comic book industry, and now they are complaining. They are complaining about censorship. Very, very interesting turn of events. We're going to talk about Marvel Comics 1000 and Marvel's decision to seemingly pull Mark Waid's editorial out of it. Mark Waid, who has been very, very vocal about his dislike of certain comic book fans, certain comic book YouTubers, certain people trying to break into the comic book industry, and Mark Waid felt that he needed to keep them out of the comic book industry because he didn't agree with their politics. So this just kind of shows you that yes, there absolutely is a political bias in the comic book industry right now. That we have a lot of people who I would say are probably political activists working in comics, working around comics, most notably journalists working in comics who are supporting this kind of behavior, which, I mean, it's been crazy. And this is coming from someone who I've said before, you know, I always consider myself more of a leftist. I do consider myself a moderate, but I've watched over the last 3 to 4 years the comic book industry just go gonzo crazy, trying to smack down any and all dissent, and now they are complaining. They're the ones complaining about censorship, and we're going to talk about why they're being quote-unquote censored, and it really just comes down to dollars and cents. It has absolutely impacted the comic book industry in a negative fashion to push political ideology on Twitter and in the comics themselves. You know, and we are talking about Captain America. Captain America has always been a political character, but it almost feels like there's a tug of war now over Captain America, over Marvel Comics, over what entertainment should be, what comics should be right now. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about it. This is Neon. This is Clownfish TV. If you guys have not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. We hit, I think, 55,000 this week. We're hoping for 100,000 by the end of the year. I don't know if that's possible. I always say that because if we miss it, I don't want people to be like, man, you've only got 95,000. 95,000. But yeah, we'd like to hit 100,000 by the end of the year. That would be amazing. And thank you so much for all the support. Your support means that we can do more videos. So we don't really talk about the Comicsgate situation very much because it seems like things had sort of died down around Comicsgate. Now, for those of you who are watching the channel who aren't familiar with Comicsgate, you know, this is a tough situation because if you Google it, you're going to find a very skewed version of what a lot of people think it actually is. From my armchair observation, it does look like a consumer pushback against excessive far left politics in comics. I'm not talking about left politics in comics. Most of the people working in comics, I would say, are probably on the left. We're talking about far left, very, very far left, activist type politics in comics. And that comics, just like other mediums, is being used to push political ideology over entertainment. And eventually consumers got sick of it. They got sick of it. They got sick of going out to these pop culture news outlets only to find that they are also being trolled and called names, being called names there as well, because we've got, again, the same kinds of people, the activist types, working at the pop culture blog, supporting the comic book industry. You know, it is absolutely openly hostile to conservative voices or even moderate voices now. I mean, that's the thing. That's what blew my mind, is we didn't voice an opinion, didn't get involved for the longest time because we're like, well, you know, we're on the left anyway. I don't really, I mean, whatever. That's their problem. It's, you know, if they're out there telling far right people to go take a hike, that's their problem. It's not really our problem. And the thing is that the line keeps moving. The line keeps moving, and now it has become normies' problems, because any dissenting opinion in comics, in the industry, you know, having a different opinion than most of the blogs out there, which we talk about a lot on Clownfish, because we've seen things change so much just in the last couple of years. Any dissenting opinion paints you as being the enemy, you know. And I never, even though there are a lot of people working in comics that I've been friendly with that maybe their views are much further left than my own, I've never considered these people enemies. I've never considered people, you know, enemies like that. Even people on, you know, who are further right than I am, I've never really considered them enemies. But it absolutely has become sort of a turf war over the entertainment industry, because entertainment has so much power. It has so much power to reach and influence people. So it is a battleground right now, and it's sad. It's really sad to see. I mean, there are people that you know, are on the quote-unquote enemy side of things that I was very friendly with just 2 or 3 years ago. And again, you know, we kind of knew that maybe we didn't see eye to eye politically, but it never really came up. It was never really an issue. It was more about making comics, you know, just geeking out about the things that we loved, and everything has become a battleground. It's poisoned everything. So why do I have this screen pulled up? Because this is the year that almost everything went wrong for Marvel Comics. This is the year where I think things sort of reached critical mass for Marvel, where it became obvious that a lot of the very far left politics being promoted and pushed in comics by the comic book blogs, by the media, kind of came to a head where it was obvious it was hurting sales. It was hurting sales. And this ended with Axel Alonso getting gone from Marvel. They brought in CB Cebulski. He immediately started canceling some titles, but then a few months later, there was controversy about him using a pen name, and they just sort of like reversed a lot of those decisions. I will tell you the truth. I think Sana Amanat is actually running Marvel. I think CB Cebulski is just kind of there. I think he's like the figurehead, but I think she is the one actually calling all the shots at Marvel Comics. So this is coming up because it does tie into the bottom line. And this is really what's, I think, prompting this decision. I think, you know, Mark Waid did write this essay. We'll talk a little bit about that. I think there probably are a lot of people at Marvel who agree with him, but I think the mandate is coming down from on high. I think it's actually coming down from on high. And let's talk about that, because we had the year everything almost went wrong for Marvel. Now, last fall, it became very obvious that ESPN was getting a little too political, and Disney CEO Bob Iger had to kind of put the kibosh on that and say, you know what, guys, this is hurting viewership. This is hurting sales. We need to pull this back. The pendulum has swung too far. I think this is actually what's going on with Marvel right now, where they have a lot riding on this. They have theme parks. They have the comic books are actually the smallest part of the Marvel machine. It's about movies. It's about theme parks. Okay, it's about merchandise. And if Middle America isn't feeling good about Marvel Comics right now, if Middle America doesn't feel that Marvel Comics wants them, they're not going to buy their kid Captain America underpants. That's what this is about. So it's all about the money. And Disney, while people accuse Disney of playing favorites, politically, at the end of it, Disney wants everybody's money. So now, this is just bizarre to see. So now it's Marvel Comics. Marvel Comics is being accused of doubling down on its misguided crusade to remain apolitical. Marvel Comics has not been apolitical in a number of years, and that is part of the problem. There, you know, and to be honest, look, I will concede there have always been politics, always been political messages in comics. Always. Always. but it's never been this pointed. It's never been this heated. I don't think the fans have ever felt this disenfranchised, this alienated, this put off by all the politics in comics. Now, I personally think Marvel Comics 1000 is this huge marketing campaign. It's a non-existent anniversary. It's not really the 1000th issue of Marvel Comics. Anyone who follows Marvel knows that the modern Marvel era began in the 1960s. You know, it's just, they're trying to compete with DC. They're trying to compete with DC and justify their existence to Disney because Disney took a hit last quarter. When Disney takes a hit, they start chopping divisions, cutting back on divisions that don't perform. And I think we're going to see this. Disney is going to start pruning the trees, and Marvel Comics might be one of those divisions that they cut because they really don't need Marvel Comics. They've got decades worth of comics they can reprint endlessly. Comic books don't sell enough to even be worth it to Disney. They just want the IP to turn into movies, and frankly, they're just making stuff up now. They're not really pulling directly from the comic books anymore. They're just kind of going their own way with the basic characters and the concepts, and they don't really need the comic books anymore. And Disney knows this, and I think the people working at Marvel know this. You could just give the license to an IDW or a Dark Horse, and they could just reprint Marvel Comics endlessly and then make comics based on the movie continuity, you know, on the MCU. I think the day is coming very, very soon where that's going to happen. But I digress. So, IO9, as well as the Mary Sue, complaining about censorship. Complaining about Marvel being apolitical. So here we go. Marvel Comics continues to drum up controversy. The Hollywood Reporter revealed today that early preview copies sent to retailers of the 80th anniversary collection, Marvel Comics 1000. I think that's not accurate. This is just a cash grab. Included an essay by Mark Waid that accompanied an image of Captain America by John Cassidy and Laura Martin. However, in the issue set to hit stands tomorrow, which would have been Wednesday, and I haven't picked that up yet, the essay, as seen by comics retailers and issues sent out as previews, was replaced with what THR describes as a less critical piece, also credited to Waid, that is more directly tied to Captain America and notably less critical of the United States. Well, Disney-owned Marvel Comics, in the position it's in right now, does not want to be seen as being critical of the United States. Captain America, who has been controversial in the last couple of years because of Secret Empire, does not want to be seen as being critical of the United States, even though Captain America, to be fair, has been critical of the United States on many occasions. Again, this is about the movies. This is about the theme parks. This is about, Billy buying Captain America underoos. That's what this is about. So the original Waid essay sounded highly critical of the American political system, saying this isn't the land of opportunity for everyone, and calling for people to take action and force those in power to listen. Force them to listen. Well, if nobody's buying the comics and the comic book industry goes belly up, there goes the platform. IO9 has also seen evidence of the alterations to Marvel Comics 1000. So guys, I actually went out and bought Marvel Comics 1000 to verify that they did indeed change Mark Waid's essay. So here we go. Masks are designed to hide things. Some heroes wear them to protect their true identities so as to shield their loved ones from retaliation. I have a different reason. I wear mine as a reminder to people that Captain America isn't a man, it's an idea. It's a commitment to fight every day for justice and acceptance and equality and for the rights of everyone in this nation. At its best, this is a good country filled with people who recognize that those, not hatred, not bigotry, not exclusion, are the values of true patriotism. Several others have had occasion to don this suit and carry the shield over the years. I have faith that someone else will continue that tradition long after I'm gone. Maybe it'll be your neighbor, maybe it'll be you. I'm not the first to represent those values. I won't be the last. At its best, this is a good country filled with people who recognize that those, not hatred, not bigotry, not exclusion, are the values of true patriotism. So this apparently is not Mark Waid's original essay. Yeah, obviously not. I'm forcing those in power to listen. Obviously not. So the original Wade essay sounded highly critical of the American political system, saying this isn't the land of opportunity for everyone, and calling for people to take action and force those in power, force them to listen. That was not in that essay. IO9 has evidence. Yes, well, we do too. We looked, and sure enough, it's been changed. Marvel Comics editor-in-chief C.B. Cebulski did not respond to IO9's request for comment, but someone close to Marvel told us the reason Wade's essay was changed was that the Anniversary Collection was designed to be a marketing tool, to be a celebration of the publisher's history. They added that the team thought Wade's original essay fell out of place while mentioning that the first draft of the collection wasn't for publication and that each essay is meant to be from a Marvel character's point of view. I guarantee you they were going to publish it. I can almost guarantee you they were going to publish that. And the reason they pulled the plug was probably Disney freaked out because they actually are doing some marketing around Marvel's 80th, which is not true. They're rewriting history. Marvel Comics, as we know it, only existed since 1960s, but I digress. They didn't comment on whether the essay's political message factored into the decision. I guarantee you. IO9 reached out to Wade for comment. He has yet to reply, but in a statement to Newsarama, he called the framing of the changes a misrepresentation of events. The only comment I'll offer is that the abridged version that's being circulated by news outlets severely mischaracterizes what was actually written. So the alteration is just 2 weeks after Pulitzer Prize-winning comics creator Art Spiegelman pulled his introduction to a comics collection because Marvel wanted him to take out an indirect, albeit pointed, Donald Trump reference. When asked, the sources close to Marvel said they didn't feel there was a connection between the two incidents. No, I can tell you exactly what's going on. This is, look, regardless of whether you agree or disagree with it, Disney, Marvel, is finally realizing that being too political current year is bad for business. They need to try to save all the readers they can save. And, you know, they thought for the longest time that Portland was their audience, that they made up the bread and butter, that they made up the bulk of their comic book sales, I guess. And that's not the case. It's Middle America, and Middle America is completely disenfranchised with the comic book industry now, seemingly. That's why the numbers keep going to the bad. But, you know, here, again, we've got IO9, which, you know, is one of the news outlets that have been, you know, stoking the fire against the man babies, against the comic skaters, against the alt-right comic book fans that, you know, I've yet to see. Trying to remain apolitical is an effort in futility in 2019. Art is inherently political. Saying you're not political serves to uphold the status quo and hold back diverse voices who might open up the audience's perspective to other points of view, like, for example, how America isn't perfect and how fighting injustice is the American way. Insulating your audience from the larger problems of the world, instead choosing to gloss over it all with vague messages about Captain America's mask as a symbol, doesn't do anyone any favors, especially in a world where the creatives behind Captain America, whether it's Steve Rogers or Sam Wilson, are using Captain America's status as a symbol of what America should be to actually question the nobility and ideals of what the nation and its people have become. So the source close to Marvel said they don't agree with the idea that Marvel Comics is shying away from discussing political issues, talking about the Captain America series by Ta-Nehisi Coates, but said that they believe the work speaks for itself. Whether Marvel's higher-ups want to admit it publicly or not, Captain America is inherently a political figure. That is true. That is true, and he's been at odds with America before. I think so. Now they're tying this to Ike Perlmutter being a Trump supporter. Actually, he's like a super Trump supporter. But you know what? Even on his watch, Marvel Comics in 2014, 2015 was allowed to take a far left turn. I don't think Ike cares as long as he's making money. Maybe he wasn't aware, because as I understand it, Ike Perlmutter is more involved in the TV side of things. But I know a lot of these blogs have been complaining about Ike Perlmutter being in charge at Marvel. So here's Mark Waid's essay in its entirety. So Mark Waid's original essay, he's talking about how flawed America is, how flawed America's been, and I don't disagree with that. I mean, America has had some flaws. You know, it definitely has had some flaws. But this is where I think a lot of this is going. America's systems are flawed, but there are only mechanisms with which to remedy inequality in meaningful scale. It's hard and bloody work, but history has shown us that we can, bit by bit, right that system when enough of us get angry. When enough of us take to the streets and force those in power to listen, when enough of us call for revolution and say injustice will not stand. That's what you can love about America, that people get angry and force people to listen. And I think if you look at it from that mindset, and you look at a lot of the journalists that are kind of, propping up the comic book industry right now, and some of the tweets by comic book professionals right now, you can see that that is in their heads. I think that is what I think they are trying to bring activism to comics because that's their world. Again, this is just my armchair opinion. When I was younger, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I was part of a hyper-religious group, let's put it that way. And, I've always drawn parallels between a lot of the activists out there working in entertainment to very, very religious people. It's almost, it becomes like an all-consuming thing. You basically eat, sleep, and breathe your ideals, your beliefs. You think that you're basically put here to convert people, and the people who can't be converted, then they become your enemy. And I kind of see this right now in comics. And in religion, they often refer to it as your mission field. This is your territory, your turf. This is where you go out and you convert people. You convert people to your way of thinking. And if you can't convert them, then they become your enemy, And that's sort of the mindset of, when you're in, and I'm not talking about run-of-the-mill Christianity. I'm not talking about, like normal religious people. I'm talking about hyper-religious people who basically, that is their goal, is to convert. And that is what I've kind of seen within the comic book industry, within a lot of the pop culture journalism space, is these people, this is their mission field. This is their mission field. They really truly believe that they are doing the quote-unquote Lord's work and trying to convert the nasty right-wing people to their train of thought. This is, is an all-consuming thing. And I know that mindset. I've seen it. I've lived it. I know the mindset. You literally go to bed thinking about it. You wake up in the morning and you're still thinking about it. And it becomes almost intoxicating, almost like a drug. Like you have to have that hit of success. You really feel like you're waging some kind of a war. You feel like if people aren't with you, they're against you, and they need to be smitten, whether it's by your religious beliefs, by the God that you believe in, or by your ideological beliefs. I've seen this mindset before, and that's what's kind of scary about it. And this is what you're actually dealing with, I think, in the comic book industry right now, is you have a lot of people who are so angry about politics, about the country right now. They're surrounding themselves with other people who feel the same way. And so it becomes, reinforcement. That's, again, back to my religious experiences. Your circle of friends, everybody that you surround yourself with it's an echo chamber. They're all telling you the same things over and over and over again. You're all on the same side, quote unquote, fighting a war. And I really do think that these activist types think that they are literally fighting a war for the soul of America. And the people in comics, their mission field is the comic book industry. You get into that mindset, and you got to realize, like, these people, to them, this is what they do. This is what they live. Why don't they let it go? Because they can't. They can't. They become addicted to the dopamine hit of getting people deplatformed, of getting their opinions out there, sneaking their opinions out there into material, talking with their friends about how to deplatform people they don't like. I know, I've been there, I've done it, I lived it. Except in my case, it was religious extremism, but it's the same mindset. You're viewing normal people, everyday people, as being your enemies. You know, you think you're in a war, fighting a war every day, even if you're not. Even if there are problems in America, you know, and I'm going to admit there are absolutely problems in America, but not everything is a battlefield. Not everything is a war. Not everyone who maybe doesn't agree with everything you agree with is your enemy. You know, just because they don't agree with you about everything, instead of trying to explain to them your point of view, you're going to try to shut them down even harder. And it doesn't work. It just escalates things over and over and over again. And comic books have become a mission field for what I believe to be political activists who are on some kind of religious crusade. You know, and I really truly feel that. And that's not, I'm not being derogatory at all. Again, I've lived it. You know, I know the mindset. It's addicting. And when people shoot you down or they try to show you evidence that maybe you're not 100% correct, maybe you've got the right idea, but your methods aren't right. Okay. And I'm not throwing shade at everyday Christian people. I'm talking about extremism. Maybe your methods aren't right. Maybe you're not going to reach people this way. Then you get even angrier because you think these people are, again, part of the problem. When you say things like, you know, this writer said in the article that even being neutral causes a problem. You know, remaining apolitical is an effort in futility. If you're not political, you're upholding the status quo. If you view the status quo as being a problem, and if you view people who are apolitical as also being your enemy, even if they're really not. Okay, if you view John Q. comic book collector as being your enemy, even though he really isn't, and you treat him as an enemy, he will become your enemy. You know, I mean, it's funny how that works. And this is the mindset, and this is what, you know, I've been trying to figure out. And I really do think a lot of it, and I didn't agree for the longest time, but I think a lot of it does go back to the 2016 election when the Democrats thought they had it in the bag and they lost and their worldview was kind of shattered. I was surprised. I'll be honest. I was completely floored that Donald Trump got elected because I had surrounded myself with people who kept telling me that he was not electable. You know, I live in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania usually goes blue. Western Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, usually goes blue because of unions, you know, and other reasons, but Pennsylvania almost always goes blue. And when I saw Pennsylvania go red, I was like, oh my God, this is not possible. But it is. And, you know, for people whose identities were so tied into their political beliefs, you know, it shattered your worldview. It's like somebody coming up to you if you're deeply religious and telling you that your God is a lie or whatever. I mean, it's going to blow your mind. You're going to get angry. You're going to push back, you know, and that's kind of what the mindset I've seen. So, you know, since then we've seen, you know, the activism ramp up, you know, and again, you know, people that were completely cool people 4 or 5 years ago, and I would actually count Mark Waid in that. I've had limited interactions with Mark over the years, but he's always seemed okay. I've never had any issues with him. I probably, you know, 3 or 4 years ago would have, you know, agreed with a lot of his political opinions, but it's been taken to a whole nother level. And I think, you know, it was left unchecked for a long period of time, and Disney didn't care until it started to affect their bottom line elsewhere. Until it started giving them a black eye in public, like articles like this in the Hollywood Reporter, when we started to see waning interest in comic books and comic book sales slipping, because right now Disney is in a really bad place. They're losing Spider-Man. All of the characters, the Avengers that people actually cared about, are gone or sidelined in the MCU, and now they have to depend on all these new characters to carry the MCU going forward. And if you've got, you know, Middle America boycotting Captain America or boycotting Marvel because, you know, Marvel Comics has been openly hostile to conservatives, that's not good for the bottom line. It's not good for the bottom line. So the Mary Sue, of course, has opinions. Marvel apparently still trying to make its top-notch Nazi puncher apolitical. And, you know, here we go. The Mary Sue, of course. The Mary Sue, if you look at their front page, it's like 3/4 pop culture, 1/4 politics. Of course, they never hide that. So what's funny about the idea of not going too deep into politics is that Captain America Civil War is a real movie based on a real comic book run that exists and is, if you recall, very political in its themes of security versus freedom. The comic book more so than the movie. What's interesting about this apolitical approach is that it's happening now after both Jack Kirby and Stan Lee are dead. These two created these characters with a message, tackling the issues in the world around them through heroes and their approach to a situation. I think they were different. The difference, I think, again, this is armchair opinion, okay? Armchair opinion. No, I do not need Archie Bunker comparisons drawn, thank you very much. But my armchair opinion is the difference back then was Marvel told you Nazis were bad. And they showed Captain America punching Nazis, but they never turned to the audience and said, you are the Nazis. You know, you are the Nazis. They left it to the reader to figure out, they left it to the reader to figure out what this meant. Just like any good parable, any good parable, it's up to the reader to try to decipher what the meaning is. And with Marvel Comics lately, there is no subtlety. There is no nuance. The creators are flat out telling you, you are Nazis. You're horrible people. And you know what? If you're told you're bad long enough, if you're told you're bad people long enough, you stop trying. You stop trying to see what the other side is actually saying. And you're just like, you know what? I'm damned if I do. I'm damned if I don't. So I might as well be the person they say I am. And that's not that people are actual Nazis. That's not what I'm saying. But you can't have a conversation with somebody after you've already told them that they're horrible people. And again, going back to religion, like you can't witness effectively to people if you've already told them up front that they're horrible people. And if you actually read the Bible, you would see that that's not really how Jesus did it. Jesus tried to relate to people. So I'm just saying, if your goal is to actually convert people to your train of thought, insulting them again and again and again, spending all day insulting them on Twitter is not a good look. It's not a good look, and it doesn't work. It actually has the opposite effect. Because you know what happens? People see you attacking people on Twitter, and they come to see what the fuss is about, and they're like, wait, why are they attacking these people? They're moderate, or they're not really that political. My God, you people are terrible. You're terrible people. Let's boycott Marvel. It just doesn't work. And I think Disney's finally starting to catch on now that this doesn't work. I think it's taken them too long to catch on now that this didn't work. I think they needed to clamp down on the social media activity of some of their creators months ago, years ago, and they didn't do it. So while Marvel seems to think an apolitical approach is best, that's definitely not the case, according to the Mary Sue. You have heroes who have political backgrounds who take a stand against injustice, and trying to turn them into something that is apolitical is a disservice to the characters and their creators. Trying to turn Captain America into a Nazi because you're mad about Donald Trump getting elected is not really in the spirit of what Jack Kirby and Stan Lee were going for either. And trying to smack down any and all dissenting voices on Twitter, even voices on the left, even moderate voices, is not a good look for Marvel either. So this, I just really feel like the comic book industry now, these are the last gasps of the comic book industry, that the damage has been done. The damage has been done because it did become a mission field for activists who thought that this was their corner of the world, that they were gonna, and I'm not saying that, look, when you're in the thick of it, you think you're right. You're 100% convinced that you're in the right. You always do. You always do. Again, when I was in the religious group I was in, you are convinced because you're surrounded with people constantly telling you that you're right, that you don't listen to other opinions, because if you listen to other opinions, it's just the enemy trying to get to you, trying to make you unsure of what we're telling you. And that's not good, because there can never be a compromise. There can never be an understanding if everybody's screaming at each other, telling the other side that they're cartoons of each other. And yeah, we need a Captain America. We need a Captain America right now who's not a Nazi. We need a Captain America. We need creators who think like Captain America thinks and wants to actually try to salvage the best of America. you know, find the common ground and not attack each other, not tear America apart even more so than it's been torn apart in the last few years. And right now, Disney's just concerned about selling as much, you know, Marvel merchandise as they can, and that's really what's behind all of this. But very, very ironic. It's very, very ironic to see the news outlets that were calling for conservative creators and anyone who supported them to basically be ousted from the comic book industry, now crying about censorship. Ironic. So we're going to wrap this one up. Just my thoughts on the situation. Please subscribe to Clownfish TV for more pop culture news, views, and rants. This has been Neon. We'll talk later. Hey guys, thanks for watching Clownfish TV. Please consider supporting the channel. Go to clownfishsupport.com. That's clownfishsupport.com. And if you want to join our community, go to clownfishtalk.com. That's clownfishtalk.com. Please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We will talk to you next time.